You're listening to the Inside the Numbers Sports Performance Podcast, brought to you by RockDaisy AMS. I'm your host, Cody Hughes, and today we have on Coach Mark Hoover. If you guys don't know Mark, he is a now technology consultant and evangelist for simplyfaster.com. He's an unbelievable coach and a great friend to me, and I really believe he's a giant in the industry. He's a coach that was an old school head football coach, very old school in his ways, was very hesitant, but finally saw the light and actually became a top-of-the-line performance coach. He uses all kinds of technology to train athletes and has been exposed to more technology than any coach I've ever met, and he can explain it in a way that every coach can digest and use. If you have any technology questions, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. You need to go to Mark because he can point you in the right direction, whether or not Simply Faster sells it or not. He's my go-to resource on things neurology, things VBT, things game speed, and all kinds of things that he does in sports performance. And I'll tell you, he's one of the nicest humans on the planet. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode as I did, and we'll see you on the inside. Welcome to Inside the Numbers, the RockDaisy Sports Performance Podcast with your host, Coach Cody Hughes. Join us to unlock the secrets behind athletic performance as we break down the metrics and transform your collected data into powerful, actionable insights. Tune in for exclusive interviews with top coaches and professionals who are revolutionizing their training programs with data. If you love what you hear, please share it on X, Instagram, and YouTube, and tag us at RockDaisy AMS. Welcome back to Inside the Numbers Sports Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Hughes, and this podcast is powered by RockDaisy AMS. And today I have on close friend of mine and a giant in the industry, and Mark Hoover. And I know he's going to be pissed that I said that, but thanks for coming to hang out.
I appreciate it, man. And the kind words are awesome. I really appreciate it. But I'm just super happy to be here and glad to finally jump on with you and catch up.
That's all this is. I mean, Mark and I talk every day, essentially. You know, we have for those of you that don't know, like, I got in trouble on Twitter a few years ago, and I got some really good advice from some people to say, just take your venting to, like, the DM. So we have, like, a couple, like, group chats on the Twitter DM where we go and just literally, you know, pop off with our opinions. And it keeps us from...
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
From posting weird things. Now, I'm sure at this moment... at least the moment that we're recording this, that Mark's not super happy as his Yankees made it back to the World Series and is currently down 3-0. Trash. I always make fun of you, Mark, because it's like you're so level-headed when it comes to like technology and like you don't have a bias, you understand it, but when it comes to like Yankee baseball, you're like irrational fan. Everything goes out the window. Like I'm so pissed at the coaching decisions and all that.
Pete Tongren sent me a message the other day. You know Pete, don't you?
Yeah.
And he said, "Man, I love your takes on Yankees." He said, "I'm a Cleveland fan." But he said, "You literally say everything that every fan wants to say. You just go to Facebook and social media and say it." And I was like, yeah, I've been like that since day one, with the Yankees. And I was worried about this one because the American League is trash this year. You would think it's just not a good league. The Yankees are a very average baseball team that made it to the World Series, and the National League is friggin' loaded.
Yeah, for sure.
The Padres would smash the Yankees. The Braves would have probably beat the Mets would have beat the Yankees. I mean, I knew it was going to be trouble just because Judge wasn't going to hit. The team's going to hit. They're going to go 3 for 104 with runners in scoring position, and the starting pitching is going to implode, and that's exactly what happened. So,
Yeah, that's it. That's the life you live, the dichotomy of being both a professional in sports but also a fan. Mm-hmm. Like I'm the same way with Auburn football, as you know. Like I'm in just poverty as a fan. But we were watching football. My parents were over this weekend for game 1, and we're like, dang, that game's still going on. So like football was over or whatever, and we flipped it over literally as Freddie Freeman was coming, as they decided to intentionally walk Mookie Betts to Freddie Freeman, and I was like, why'd they do that? And it goes, well, they think they have lefty-lefty matchup here. Well,
and the dude hadn't hit a home run in like weeks and weeks. I know. He had no extra base hits in the postseason.
And he hits one 450.
Yeah. and then
win
has hit
it.
one in every game since.
I know, which is crazy. But
It's,
I know you
yeah.
guys weren't here to listen to us talk about the World Series. We could talk about something you guys
Right,
like to talk
yes.
about, which is training athletes. But so, Mark, hey, you're in Florida now. For those of you that know Mark so well, right? He's lived in North Carolina, coached in the Carolinas, all over the place. But now getting down to Florida with Simply Faster full time. What's the next steps now that you guys are officially moved down there? What are you looking to do as far as training wise?
Well, trying to just catch on with high school, kind of like it's always been so easy. I've never had to North Florida is kind of an unknown region, and so I've emailed coaches and explained, hey, listen, I just want to come on and I'll be there after school for you from 3 o'clock on. And I get emailed back like, nah, our defensive coordinator handles all of it. And I'm like, all right, you don't want the shred mill and the force plates and the GPS units and 30 years of experience, but hey, whatever. And I'm not trying to be a jerk about that, but it's just, how it's just like, are you serious? Like, you don't even want to have a conversation?
Yeah.
And so I've our local high school here, I've got I wasn't getting emails back from coaches, so I emailed the AD, and then I got to see her. I went to the football game the other night, and someone introduced me to her, and she's like, oh, yeah, you sent me an email. She said, she said, sometimes I get a lot of emails like that where someone sends me a resume that looks impressive, and they say they want to help out the school, and it's just a big scam. And I was like, ouch. Like,
yeah. That's
like,
tough,
ouch.
man.
Yeah. And I said, like I said, I know I told you you and Brandon in that group chat, I said, I wanted to say, just Google me, but I didn't want to come off being like, oh, I'm so, because that's not what I believe at all. Like I was telling someone today, I used to kind of be like that, in my younger years. And then I met Tony Villani and realized he's literally the best in the world at what he does. And he's the most humble, unassuming, genuine human being in the history of the world. And that's the way. Yeah. Like, 100%. Be Tony, And so I'm trying to just meet people and reach out, but, this is an unknown. Florida's and I knew going in, strength conditioning is not something that, is well defined here at the high school level. Yeah. But, it's that way in a lot of states. It's that way in my home state of Pennsylvania for the most part. You would think, but it's just the history of it is the coaches, want to do it themselves. And it's my job not to be like, oh, these guys just don't know what they're missing. Even though you want to say that, my job is to somehow prove my worth and my value to these coaches so that I can coach, because I just don't think I'm 53, but I'm not ready to stop. I could.
Yeah, no way.
I could sit in this office and, and do my thing, but I am not ready to stop coaching high school kids in any way, shape, or form. And I told the AD, she said, are you interested in just football? And I said, I don't care if you come and say the girls lacrosse team wants you out there, and that's the only one. I'll be the best sports science, strength and conditioning performance coach for the girls lacrosse team that I can possibly be. So you just tell me what you want. And so I've got a phone call with her Wednesday or Thursday. I called her yesterday, and I got her right in the middle of the first day of winter sports. And so she's like, Coach, she said, I am so sorry. She said, I've got 100 kids that don't have their paperwork done, and I've got to sit down with each and the one. She probably didn't have quite 100, but probably. But I was like, I've been there. I haven't been in the field long enough to remember when the only paperwork needed was a physical. Yeah. You just brought your physical and rock and roll, and now it's like it's craziness. But so I'm gonna hope to jump on with them and just start helping out kids and coaches. I talked to the baseball coach, which baseball has kind of become, I you know how it is. Football's awesome. Working with football is awesome. It's a big monster, and it's what everybody. But baseball has always been my place I like to go. Sure. And I've been so blessed to have coached at 3 schools in a row that had phenomenal baseball programs where coaches would embrace, the performance. And I think they will here. I talked to him. He's a former college baseball guy that's in his late 20s. anybody that's played Division I college baseball that's in their late 20s gets strength conditioning.
That's right.
Because it was part of their life, so I'm excited, and I'm excited for that. And from, my shred mill's I have a brand new shred mill, and I ran on it for the first time this morning, just demoing it. I found there's a guy in my neighborhood that's actually a sports performance chiropractor type guy, and he just was walking around, and we got to talking, and I got on the shred mill and demoed it for him. But
hey,
I'm hoping
I'll go ahead and say I'm not surprised, because I've spent lots of time with you, Mark. We've spent time in Miami together. You don't meet a stranger, man. Like you can chalk up a conversation with anybody. It's part of what makes you great. Hey man, how you doing? I'm new in the neighborhood.
Yeah, come look at the shred mill. But so I don't know exactly where my equipment's going to be located for the private training. I'm going to go talk to a private baseball guy that's got a facility later this afternoon, but he doesn't really have anywhere for the shred mill, but he's interested in speed training. And, I've got every toy imaginable. So,
That's right.
So, it's just that. It's coming to a new area and not, knowing anybody and not really having anybody know me. So it's a challenge, but it's going to be fun, because I've got to kind of, no one knows or cares about Hoover performance here. And, I'm going to just go out there and keep sharpening that sword and rock and roll, right?
Well, you get a fresh slate. I think it's going to be, in an area maybe where strength conditioning isn't near as prominent, especially like where you were at North Carolina. But I can understand where the AD was coming from, or where coaches are coming from. They get this random email. Like, they don't know that it's an absolute gold mine sitting in their email. Like, they have no idea. Because, some people may be looking to do something and then be like, hey, I'm looking to get paid, or because like, you're a very unicorn in this situation. So how you're approaching that, kind of slow cooking it, trying to establish those relationships. And I just know that when we circle back here, whenever 6 months to a year, and you come back on here, and we're going to say, all right, look at where you've grown now. Because whoever's going to trust you with it is going to be, they're really going to take off. It's going to be really cool to see. So one thing that I want to ask you about is like how you've transitioned over the years from, if you guys don't know Mark, you should. It's crazy if you don't, but like former head football coach, and how you've made such a 180 on performance, where you used to be like a major meathead, and but now you're like in this customer service industry with Simply Faster, and taking, some onboarding calls, tech calls, trying to give suggestions because of your vast experience with technology. And we talk about it all the time. As much as you want to like bang a cast iron pot over the head of somebody, how you treat them still really matters. And
yes.
I guarantee you that approach to coaching is carried, like that approach just carries over to coaching too.
Absolutely. I think that it kind of worked in reverse as far as the way I clicked in with Simply Faster, because this wasn't even a position. It's just my willingness to talk to people and just hunger for knowledge, as I just want to know stuff, kind of fit into that model. And when the technology piece kind of started coming in, I just started chasing it. And then, I think I kind of have a personality. My dad says that my dad is always been a businessman, and he said, it doesn't surprise me because it's in our blood. It goes all the way back, to my grandfather and things. But you got to be a pretty good salesman to be a good strength conditioning coach, especially at the high school level, because you got to sell. I've sold some concepts that seem really bizarre to people to some really old school coaches, and it's that's just got to be part of it. And then you got to sell it to the kids. You want to talk about, I'm doing the square one online stuff right now, and some of that ankle stuff that I learned that has led me to square one, and helping with shoulders and ankles just by not being if your ankle's broken, I'm not gonna be able to help you. But there's a truth to, and you saw it firsthand with Ernest. There's a truth to threat reduction, blowing your mind. You can reduce that threat, and you've got to sell that stuff to people. Like, I remember when you were completely anti-RPR, and
I thought it was completely woo-woo scam, dude. Like, and for those of you that need to hear this, so we were in Pittsburgh for the Sportsmith Speed Conference. I was there with RockDaisy. Mark was there, Simply Faster. We were all just there hanging out, staying, and Ernest, a guy that
Ernest Osias. Yep.
Ernest Osias, True Speed Training, is that right? True Speed. He's he's just a genius. Like, he is just something else, and he's a very, very smart guy and willing to give his shirt off his back. But anyway, we were sitting there in the lobby, and I was like, all right, you two. I need you guys to prove to me that this is for real. And all this whole scratching my back crap and digging in my stomach and all this brain threat stuff. So if you guys don't know, Mark is a huge human. Okay, you're a big human. Former college football player, could pick me up with two hands and crush me like a Coke can. And I'm not a small human. So that just tells you how big he is. Well, he was like, all right, I'm going to stand this way. Basically, we were trying to see, can I inhibit rotation? And I'll never forget, like, you did a test and was like, okay, probably not going to be very strong here. I want you to grab here, and I want you to try to rotate me. And I did, and I rotated you really easy, and I was like, no, come on. Like, you just completely just BS me on that. And he's like, okay. They did the drills, and like, try it again. And I couldn't move him. And I was like, yeah, but you gaming it. And he goes, all right, well, let's reverse roles. Well, I did it, and I'll never forget, like, trying to resist after they found a weak spot, and I just absolutely couldn't. But when I could, I resisted him, and I was like, no, you're not pushing as hard. He goes, yes, I am. And then they kept trying to, and I'm like, all right, let's try. It's like, because remember, guys, I had a hip replacement, if you guys didn't know, on my right hip. So trying to see, like, the strength of my glute where they put me on my stomach and did the same exact test and showed how much stronger it was. And I was like, all right, let's sit down. We need to talk. And I don't know how long we spent. We probably stayed up there till 1 a.m.
Yeah, talking. At least.
It was awesome. But
man, if you think Ernest had some stuff then, he's got some. He is getting kids back on the field to the point where chiropractors and performance people are calling and complaining, and he's not doing anything medical.
Right.
You know, he's just.
Are they trying to get him on the whole, like, this isn't your scope of practice, like you're not licensed or whatever?
And this is exactly when I got the call, the little bit of a complaint about it. I said, the only thing that matters is results. Those kids want to get back out on the field and want to be able to play, and they don't want to wait 2 to 4 weeks in ice. They want to be able to play tomorrow. And if Ernest can do it, then
that's
Ernest
who's getting the call.
That's who's getting the call. And because it was, we were sending our kids from Metrolina there because we had legit 28 kids on our varsity team. We can't lose any. So when if I can't help them with, my growing but limited knowledge in the neurological, impact area, I'm limited. I can help with some slight ankle stuff, Ernest can reduce pain, reduce swelling, and tell people, if you got a torn ACL, Ernest, go to him post surgery because those are some things he can help with. But if you got a glute, got a quad pulled, he'll get you back on the field, and he's just got resources and time to research all of this, and because he's a commodities trader that has created some unbelievable algorithm or something. So he has to work, but he spends most of his time doing this now.
Yeah, no doubt.
He's a great guy, it's insane. It's insane. Yeah. Yep.
Other guys obviously Dan Fichter,
unbelievable.
Listening to Dan speak at TFC, which is coming up, by the way. Are you going? Or
yep.
No?
Oh, yeah.
I'll
be there.
Going back to Elmhurst? Yeah. That was a cool trip, man. I really enjoyed that last year. But finally getting to hear Dan talk for real and, learn about good sided exercises and how he was he broke it down in a way with and actually explained the brain in a way that was this isn't this isn't a magic show. This isn't David Blaine. No. This isn't me trying to trick you and make you go, woo. This is this is just a journey I've gone down of trying to figure out the source of why the body's not letting me perform. And it goes back to the brain. And that's still stuff we don't understand because some of us coaches want things to be a little bit simpler or rely on tradition and not look at something that we might not quite understand. And the brain is certainly that.
He's got a chiropractor that works in his office, and he was telling us that's how that conversation started. Was the guy came and said, this doesn't make any sense. This is crazy. Don't be telling people this. And he showed him, and now the guy's killing it because, at some point, people are going to start saying, if I do both, if I'm a chiropractor that also does this stuff, or if I'm a physical therapist that gets out of the book and gets out of the, the things that, and I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but that the bureaucracy doesn't want, because there's a way that money is made.
Correct.
And if you would be willing to play on both sides of that card, you're going to be extremely successful.
Yep.
Or partner with a medical person that will. And that's what Dan's got going on. And his knowledge is like the kids that I was able to get back on the field after doing everything I could, athletic trainers doing everything they can. And I'm finally like, I got a guy that I can call. It's going to be weird. They're like, I don't care. I haven't been able to sprint in 7 weeks. We got a game Friday. Get on the phone with him, FaceTime, and I'm holding it here, and he's talking to my guy and having him do the craziest stuff. Played, kid hadn't hit max V since track season, and we're getting ready for the first game in the fall. He hadn't hit max V because every time he'd get close, his hamstring would jump, and because his brain did not like that movement. He wasn't still injured. His brain was protecting him.
Yeah. And sometimes that just needs to be just a quick reset. You know what's funny, being a tech guy, and now that I'm an assistant AD here and I deal with our Jumbotron and a bunch of other game day stuff, and the number one answer for everybody that's in tech is power
Reset.
Cycle it. Turn it off and let it turn back on. And I'm over
Delete
here
the
like,
app and reload.
I was like, that's such a dumb. I'm like, that's a dumb answer. Like, you don't actually believe, you're just doing that to get an easy way out. But when I actually had an IT guy explain to me, no, it's called a power cycle. It's about how everything communicates, and when you just hit reset, sometimes those line of communications just kind of just get off. And when you shut down the power and bring it back, it almost always straightens itself out. That reminds me of the nervous system. It's the same. If it's threatened, it's already there. There has to be an input somewhere to reset that.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I blew the kids away at York with RPR when I was first using it. We had a kid, ended up playing small college football, but he could not get past 185. Or he couldn't hit 185 on the hang clean. He would get to 175 or 180, and he would nail it, and he would fail. And coaches were saying, let's go. It was max day, let's go. And so the more he's getting, and I could just see him just getting all internally rotated, and his brain just, he's just, just ready to explode. So I took him aside and I said, listen, I'm going to have you do a couple things here. And I RPR'd him and I had him breathe, just mouth closed, big belly breath, just relax. I said, now, just in your mind, while you're thinking, just see yourself doing that. And then walk over there and don't roll the bar back and forth and dance around. Just pick it up and hang clean it. He walked over there after 3 or 4 minutes of that and just picked it up and nailed it and slammed the bar down and was like, Coach Hoover's Yoda. I was like, yeah. I was like, nah, I'm not Yoda. Dan Victor's Yoda. I'm like, this is what I tell people. I'm Luke Skywalker when he's landed on Yoda's plane. I know that's a Star Wars, but I know the Force. I just don't really know how to control it yet.
Right.
Dan Victor, Ernest Osias, they are the master Jedis.
100%. But it's definitely something to look forward to. I know I want to take square one at some point. I remember even this football season, the one thing I took back from you guys is I don't remember the exact word for it, but it's the eye calibration that we did.
Yeah, cicadas.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so all of our skill guys, we would. I said, let's get our eyes reset, and they're like, they would test. They'd hit the finger and go, nope, I'm good, sweet. They go to the other side and whoop, and I'm like, okay. We'd go through the same process, finally got it, and it'd be amazed where the guys after pregame would be like, I'm seeing the ball better. I'm like, I know. It's
just your body, your brain is, the whole purpose of your brain is to keep you alive. And so the best way for it to do that is conserve energy in any way possible. So you don't have to worry about being attacked from the woods anymore like a lion, so so all you got to do is flip that switch back on and it increases your peripheral vision. Now you see things better. Just from a concussion standpoint, imagine being able to widen that peripheral vision so that they can see the contact coming and brace faster. Just the brain, brace for that. There are people that are going to argue with you and say that they're wrong, dude. They're wrong. I don't care if they're a doctor of 50 years with 17 PhDs. If they tell you that neurology stuff isn't real.
Yeah, I agree. I just bought, switching gears here, I got 3 more Titan units coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got basketball season starting up now. I'm actually I bought them myself because I wanted to have them. I wanted to own them because, like, I got pro day guys coming in the spring. Like, they're mine. So that way we can do all that stuff. But I'm going to, since it's the Titan 3, I'm going to utilize it as an IMU with basketball this year. Like something totally new, like indoor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Elwood, by the way, with Titan Sensor, was telling me it connects to a heart rate sensor, which is really cool. So I've got a Polar H10 that I'm going to hook to a guy, and now all the heart rate data is supposed to come from the heart rate monitor into the IMU, which now will pop up all together on the dashboard with Titan. I am freaking stoked about that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because heart rate is the secret sauce for basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could get your we did that at York. We even set up I'd have been all over the IMU when I was working with that girls basketball team with the heart rate, because he was so into it that he scheduled his practices. Like, he had a JV coach watching heart rate levels. When he wanted a low day, he was like, I don't care how mad I am, if I'm fussing. He said, when our heart rates start getting to a certain point, you need to give me a signal so we can, and we would do drills where, I got that one from Mike Bewley where he was like, hey, most of the game is played above 70 to 85% heart rate or whatever. So we would have them run back and forth until their heart rate hit 85, and then they would go to the nearest hoop and they would shoot free throws until their heart rate dropped back to 70, and then they would start again, trying to, quote unquote, not condition them per se, but condition them for that moment, because that's mental toughness. You and I have had that conversation. Yeah. Can they perform the skill in that hard situation? Well, when you're just shooting free throws, that's easy. Can you do it when you've been running up and down the court? So we would do that once a week, and we would blow it up on a big Promethean board, and the coaches would yell out when it hits 70, go, and there's so much you can do to be so much smarter about how you prepare your practices, and you're not going to take a team that isn't talented enough to win a state championship and win one, but you're going to take a team up a level, when you do 100%. Things like that. So,
I had a conversation with our head basketball coach about, I was like, hey, are you cool with this? Because like this, it's going to seem like, I don't want you to get frustrated with the process of making sure our vests are clean. Hey, do they have it on before practice? Are they, It can be a team effort. I said, it ain't just me. We can get our manager involved, right? And then we can get an assistant coach where you don't even have to worry about it. And I said, this first year, I just want to collect and see what happens. And I'm hoping that I can get, because the way that Mark was Elwood was explaining, like you get like impacts, you get jumps, you still get a player load number with indoor stuff, and just track it over time. Yeah, you don't get speed. You do get the inertial, like G-force stuff. So we'll see. Like I'm going to try to give him some feedback too, and see how much value I can get from it. But the cool thing is that I can turn around and use those same threes, and I'm going to put them on 2 guys Friday night. And I can just switch the sensor in my system, which is, I've been blown away by Titan, man. Like, I really have.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, when people call me and are like, what GPS? I'm just like, I've used all of them, essentially, or at least demoed them all. For the price and what they give you, you can't even compare Titan to anything else. And what they don't understand is they're like, I want to go with this big name. And I told you this big name because they're using it at this college. Trust me, what you're getting for that price isn't what they're getting at Auburn, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's second to none. And
it makes me think like, hey, I thought of this analogy like, oh, you want a G-Wagon? Yeah, but when you think you're getting the same Mercedes G-Wagon, it shows up as the little kitty electric version that 5-year-olds drive.
The one that I use is you get a race car body with a go-kart engine. Like, it's the same body. It looks the same, man. It's got the same name on it. But inside of there is the go-kart engine. And it's not going 220.
That's right.
So,
and then you've got you got the guys like I interviewed Nate Mathis, who's the strength coach at Gainesville High School near Atlanta, which they have crazy resources. And he's episode 3, if you guys haven't listened to it. They have the catapult vectors where they get live data.
No,
and he was explaining to me how, like, he can even do like acute to chronic inside practice live. I was like, holy cow. They're a big 7A school. They operate like a college. So that's the only time I feel like it's needed.
The thing with that too is, and someone was asking me that the other day about the live feature, and I said, how many high schools have a guy that's going to sit on a computer during football practice and monitor it live? So that feature's a little overblown unless you have a dedicated,
right.
If you're where Kyle Southfield's at, and they might be able to do something like that because, but your general, I'm not doing it. I got other sports to work with. When I was full-time, I had other sports to work with. I couldn't be at every second of, it's definitely, and what you said earlier about the basketball team, I was going to mention, you got the right thing there. The number one thing you need a head coach for in this process is to enforce the kids having to wear it. That's what I told our coaches at York. Like, I don't need you guys to do anything other than I'll hand you the report if you got questions, whatever. But it has to be coming from you that this is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
That was the biggest battle I had early on was
I don't want to wear this crap.
It's uncomfortable, and unless the head coach says wear it or go sit on the bench, then it's not going to be.
Yep. I'm excited. I haven't had any of that kickback. I mean, I think I also had limited units, and if I chose a kid to wear it, they were like, man, coach, when do I get to wear the tie or the GPS? I'm like, well, you haven't earned it. Like, this guy's making a lot of plays.
It was my first year we wore it at York. It was a battle. Like, kids would wear it to warm up, and then before they put their shoulder pads on, they put it on, and then they say, "Oh, I forgot to put it back on." You're like, "Oh, 6 weeks in a row?" Yeah, right. Then it just became, we had enough units to put every kid in it, so it became something that they were interested in. And, we showed the value of it eventually. But, at Metrolina, the kids aren't going to, I could have told them they had to wear it on their nose, and they would have been like, okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Yeah. So what, you were telling me off air, like right here, we're looking at you here at the Simply Faster headquarters, and you've got all these pieces of toys just right here at your disposal, right? That's kind of like your gig now is. So what? I know you were really rolling with your force plates at Metrolina before you guys end up, moving to Florida. Was there any things you were seeing, adaptation-wise, or ways that you were implementing the force plate that may have opened your eyes on things or learned anything from using that?
I would say the biggest change is with the force plates was the value of a stiff landed altitude drop and not being that coach that just assumes because it's 48 or 52 inches that it's somehow dangerous. Because you find out real quick that, if you're talking 5, 8, 11 times body weight to run a sprint of forces being absorbed into the ground, how do you prepare the athlete for that? You can't, you're not squatting 10 times their body weight,
Yep.
They're also not in a relaxation contraction in a, 2 millisecond situation. How can you put an athlete into that mode of preparation where they're actually preparing their body to absorb the forces of sprinting? All of a sudden, you start measuring things on the force plate, and you're like, holy smokes, like, this is how we do it. We do relax, drop off the box, hit the ground stiff, I think that there's, force plates are unbelievably valuable. There's so many different things you can do with them. But I think that right there changed a lot of my view on that. I used to be worried about, if the kids are going to jump, we have to start them jumping, this, and then work them up to this, and spend all this time on this this landing mechanics and step by step by step by step. Hey, and by the time they're a junior, we'll get them doing a single leg drop off a 12-inch box maybe, and then you realize, I mean, I'm looking back and I wasn't even like a kid that took a lot of chances, but I used to jump off the 5.5-foot wall of my grandmother's porch over and over for fun.
Yep.
And just landing for fun. I never got injured. And
that's right.
I don't know that, my legs have always been my strength as far as the physical of my body. And, I don't know that doing that 5 or 6 summers in a row when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old isn't one of the key developmental pieces in my life, because, it's just makes sense that, look at the way kids play and then say, you got people, if you posted that on the internet, would say, that's dangerous. I'm like, well, if a 7-year-old can do it, I bet these guys would be okay. And if a 7-year-old can do it and a 15-year-old can't, something's wrong with a 15-year-old.
100%. And well, also this goes back to you're trying to separate working out or training with practice. Physics and biology and physiology does not know if it's training or practice. Like the doctor saying, like, you're cleared to play but no squats, or like you're cleared to play or you're cleared to practice but no sprinting.
So
what?
Ridiculous.
Like there's nothing more dangerous than playing, because one, you're trying to solve problems at an absurd rate and your brain is going like crazy, which is probably going to be your most vulnerable time to get injured. I mean, did you see that basketball player? This is very recent. I saw it last night. He was just jogging down the court and he kind of slipped and snapped his femur or whatever, or snapped his tibia.
I didn't, but I don't want to. Holy
yeah,
cow.
It was wild. I mean, it was like extremely non-contact. He fell a little bit, but it was like, I was like, okay. Like then your mind originally goes, how did something seeming so minuscule that somebody else could do a million times over and never have a problem, why did things go wrong? An answer we try to answer, but we'll never be able to fully. But it always, to me, it comes back to the brain again too. Like, if the brain was threatened and there was, I don't know, who knows? I mean, I just saw that injury and was like, holy cow, why would something like that happen to somebody who seems so strong? And at the same point you're talking about with coming back to force plates is like, all right, now you can actually put a number with a stimulus. That's the cool part. It's like understanding force. That's a whole different ballgame. Like if you read Dan Cleather's book, Force. I'll be honest. You got to be a nerd to read that, because because force is, it's the same concept of Star Wars. The Force. You can't really see it, but the same thing with force in general with gravity. Gravity is still a theory. We all know it's true. But according to science, it's still a theory, which is hilarious. Like, we know it's real. Throw something up. I mean, you throw this up and it falls down. I mean, gravity's here. I mean, so
I had a conversation this morning. We were talking about earlier with that sports chiropractor that's in my neighborhood that just came by, and we were talking about people's obsession with, and I know this is a big thing, obsession with the back squat being the only way to get kids strong for foot. Like you have that. And I'm not an anti-back squat guy in any way, shape, or form. But I understand that it's a tool. It's a tool. And one of the things that I also understand is not everybody's going to be able to do a back squat where it's not going to screw up their gait. I think Cal Dietz has all but proven that for us. So sometimes the answer is put them into an isometric split squat or, some other tool.
Yeah.
And I used that tool when I had a girl at York that she needed a little bit of spotting, get into the position, but she could hold an isometric split squat for 5 seconds with 315 pounds.
Wow.
Basketball player.
Yeah.
You want to talk about force? Like, who's stronger, that girl or the kid that back squats 415 bilaterally? I would venture to say that if you put on the force plates, the isometric split squat, is going to be much more impactful from a left to right leg. There's so many different ways to produce these adaptations that the force plates help you to show people that. And if you don't get anything else out of it, you can show coaches, here's the number. You want them to be able to produce force in a certain time period, because if it happens in 3 seconds, it's not impacting the field. There is I'm not a sports specific, but there's a time for that slow, strong lifting too. But at some point, you better be doing things that are happening in the time frame at the force level that is going to be expected of the athlete on the field or court. And those things are not as popular with people.
100%.
So
it's not as popular if you don't have some things that can show, like you said, with force plates. Like,
the force
I'll
plates.
never forget, like, my story of realizing that. One, when Simply Faster's the clinic down at Tony's place, where Joey Garaccio kind of presented on his like multi-football movement filming of like movement time frames of like a kick slide on a tackle, pad to pad interior alignment, like snap to pad contact, change of direction getting out of a route, things of that nature, and the time frames underneath all that. It's like, okay, we need to be able to produce certain amount of forces within those time frames. And then, like, when I got to hear Dave Ballou speak, he brought it up in a sense with VBT, even with your barbell work, same concept. Strength is an expression. Strength is not an attribute. That's a Bobby Stroop quote. So Bobby Stroop said it, with Mahomes, was like, strength. You good?
Yeah, I got to plug my computer back in. Sorry.
We don't want you to die on me.
There we go.
We're good?
I'm good now. Yeah.
But yeah, like Bobby Stroop was saying, strength is an expression, not an attribute. And I was like, okay, because everybody thinks that strength is simple to understand. Well, it's actually not.
Yeah,
strength is applied.
Yeah.
It's expressed in a million different ways. You can't, right? It's a skill expression, task specific. And a really cool, I actually opened up, our baseball coaches always let me do whatever I wanted, but I had a really cool example with him yesterday. So yesterday was like our time to revisit our peak power assessment. So like, we do 0.80 to 0.90 mean velocity on most of our strength lifts to see, because that's typically where peak power is going to happen. So like it was we're box squatting for the most part, and I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do today. All we're doing today is I've got your number from your last assessment of the heaviest weight you could lift at 0.80 on a box back in August. All right, now we're in October after about 12 weeks of training. Let's just reset some things and see. Like, I'm going to let you guys go. So I'm like, all right, we're going to start at this number to get warmed up, and you're going to do triples. And I want you to do triples and see your set average with a set amount of rest time. And I was like, I don't care how many sets it takes. You go until you cannot get the velocity above 7.9. Like, you can't. With everything you have for 3 reps. And then we've got these 2 athletes. So we've got like our starting shortstop, who's more of like a thicker kid. He loves to lift. He's strong, but he's not crazy athletic and not crazy twitchy. But these are 2 college signees, by the way. Then our right fielder, who's not like crazy strong, and he doesn't really look, but he's a 17.6 on a 5'10" fly for you guys. That's sub 120, by the way. Like if you're sub 120, and he's got crazy bat speed from the left side, like can really but he doesn't look like he's all that. And then you've got, all right, 1 RM estimated max. The shortstop, who's 10 pounds heavier and thick and stocky and loves to lift, he's about a 405 box squat. Okay, he weighs 185, 190. The right fielder is 175, 180. He can only lift it about like 330. Okay, 330. But their 0.80 assessment yesterday was the same.
Yep.
It was the same at 275. Like, this kid, maximally strength-wise, was only, it's not 3, that's not right. He was more like 365. So 365, but 275 is where he could hit peak power. And if you look at that just from a capacity standpoint, that's like 75% of his 1 RM. Like 1 RM in a constraint of 0.30 velocity constraint, by the way. So just so you guys know, that seems like a really swayed number. And then some people would say, well, if his peak powers, if he can lift something at 0.80 at 75%, he's just not strong enough. I'm like, no, he just has a different profile than this other kid.
Yeah.
So like, my thought process now is that max strength touches should only keep driving that number up. I hope we keep seeing that number go up. The other kid can lift 275 at that, but he can lift 405. Like, he's he's crushing it. At .80,
He's a
which is
grinder.
like, yeah, he's a grinder, and he's got his peak power number is still good. He can hit the ball out of the park. He's a going to be a college player. But it really intrigued me in our head baseball coach. I was like, look at these two different kids, different shapes. One can run and jump a lot higher than the other. One guy has more bat speed, but this guy can still play college ball because of his brute strength, because that's just kind of how he's built, that he has to double down on that strength. And this kid is twitchy, and if we were in any other weight room, you would say that kid needs to get stronger when he's actually the one hitting the ball farther and he's running faster.
No doubt. No doubt. I've probably told you the story multiple times, but that kid we had at York, he actually went to another school, went to a charter school, but could play football at our school because he was our home school. And he had scored 13 kick and punt return touchdowns his junior year, weighing out 160. And man, he could cut. But anyway, we're in there lifting in the summer. He hasn't been lifting with us. He's a quarter squatting, like 185. Coaches are fussing. So I go over there and I get him. I say, hey, just go a little bit lower. It'll be okay. So and then next thing coaches are fussing about is not the head coach, but the assistant's like, 185. He's got to get stronger than that. Da-da-da-da-da. And I'm thinking, this dude is legit. I won't even tell you what I timed him at time after time in the 4.4s, because it seems, I didn't run that fast. I timed him that with 3 different timing systems that fast. He was a dude, and he could stop on a dime and make a cut like no one's business. And he's over there, and so I said, I'll talk to him. So I go over there, and I'm like, hey, man, listen, doing a great job. Let's keep it up.
Do the best you can, yeah.
Yeah, and because I don't care that they're like, he needs to be, he can stop probably. He can go from 0 to 20 fast, and he can go from 20 to 12 in a blink.
Yep.
He's strong.
Yep.
He just can't define strength. I think that if there was one piece of advice I would give to every sport coach that doesn't really have a background, maybe like some others do in this, is that stop defining strength by what's on a barbell.
Yeah.
And
watch it happen.
Yeah, watch it happen. Dig deep. I've been using VBT since 2014. The eye you get, I'm wrong sometimes, but I can pretty much.
Let's say you got it pretty dialed in now, I'm sure, after 10 years of using it. Yeah.
As far as watching and knowing the bar speeds, so that when they're not using it, I can. But even if you don't use VBT, you can watch them move around and see if kids are strong or not. If they can cut and make stop on a dime cuts, they are strong. My biggest fear with that kid was ruining him. I could probably get that kid to squat 275 if I just hammered him. But if he scores less touchdowns, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah. 100%. It's a wild thing to understand that, if you're watching film, if you could somehow have a football field force plate, and when he hits that cut, boom, for example, I'm reading this book right now, this book right here, Takeoff by Daniel Bowe. I'm really trying to study it because obviously he has broken down these force plate counter movement jump principles into very palatable concepts of understanding all these force plate metrics of explaining the braking impulse, the eccentric braking impulse of stopping your mass and then within a time constraint, what that means, and how, because that's what, in order to be able to get down from, because that's the game of football, and that's a whole nother conversation on game speed. Is if you find one, you got to be able to recognize the daylight of accelerating as hard as possible, as fast as possible. So learning how to accelerate, but then also knowing that I've got to be able to change direction. So maybe I only accelerate to a certain amount that I know that I'm anticipating another change of direction in order to beat my opponent, rather than it just being run as hard as you can all the time, because it drives me crazy at practice sometimes, because coaches don't mean ill will by it. They don't. They just want guys to have a motor. They just want guys to have a motor. Sprint. You got to go. You got to run. And I'm now you're expecting this kid to run a comeback? I understand where you're coming from. You've got to get off the line in your first 3 steps. But let's teach them that, yes, we need to maintain speed and then being able to brake plant separate. Things that be able to separate from your...
Show speed. That's what, the first time I was down at Tony's and I got to sit there and listen to Anquan Bolden teach these guys that were getting ready for the draft. Show speed off the ball. control speed into your break. You know, you can look like you're running 18 and be running 12, and when you look fast, what's the defensive back going to do? He's going to play fast. But if you're moving, you know, if you've turned this into a game of basketball, like they talk about, he can't cover you. If he thinks you're going 18 and you're going 14, you're open.
Yep.
You know, and I'm not a receiver, but it's Tony said it, and I just posted this. I was going through some old videos the other night because my wife hasn't come down yet, and I was bored, and I'm going through old videos.
I was wondering if that's what you were doing. I was like, you're posting old videos. I'm like, Mark is bored out of his mind and just wanting to go through.
I'm bored out of my mind. I was going through, you know, like, look at this from 4 years ago. You know, like, this is great. And but, you know, it got my juices flowing again, too. But so I posted one of Tony talking about that, where he was like, you know, you can, what's he called, being saucy. You can be saucy through this whole stem, which that's the art of it, you know, the art of movement. But when you get to your point of break, you better be a scientist, because the science is going to win there. Now, sometimes you're so talented that the science doesn't matter. You can just be saucy through the whole thing. But that's not your everyday athlete, you know.
Well, it's the same concept of, like, in high school, if you've got a receiver that's extremely fast, like, because, you know, in high school, the skill level range is crazy, right? It's not near as small and narrow like college, NFL. So if you got a kid that's, like, over and beyond fast and has some body control, they can take off on a fade route, like take off like out of control fast in the DB, and then they can spin in place in fast feet replacement. Because they were going so fast, that DB is just going to speed by them. He's still open. So, like, it's like, okay, you got open with these concepts because you're just so much faster, but I know you're going to move on to the SEC, Big 12, ACC, wherever, Power 4 football, and these guys are going to be just as fast as you. Like, you're not going to be able to just blow by guys. You're going to have to be able to leverage your footwork and your body control to create separation within spaces. You know, now your margin of error is lower. And then if you take it all the way down to, like, little kids, like, how about the kid that you train, man, Cruz? Like, that is just, like, watching his game film, like, just from a simple concept of, like, his coordination is just better than those kids. He's probably not, he may be, but I was like, he may not be super faster than everybody, but his body control and setting up angles was just killing.
Yep. They just don't know what to do with it. They just don't know what to do with it. And, you know, I know there's people who are like, people always say this, the best 8-year-old is never that is totally wrong. Because you know what? Cruz plays in the same team that Will Shipley and Malik Mustafa played on. And they were the best 8-year-olds. Because I asked Will, I've said, when we were talking about this, he said, oh yeah, it was pitch it to Malik, pitch it to Will, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Well, Cruz is on the same, he's got a kid, runs like Malik, can just flat out fly, and then him. And that's what they were doing. When I was watching the game, they were just giving it to one guy, giving it to the other. Those dudes are both going to be studs. Like, I get the idea that sometimes they get bigger and, you know, like in 13. And I think the better analogy is probably a lot of times the best 13-year-old isn't going to be the best high school guy, because sometimes they just grow into their body, so they're just so much bigger.
Yep. But
yeah, you're never too young. People will say that, obviously free play. I'm a big guy for that. Agility games, just letting them play. But there's nothing wrong with teaching them body control and how to control some of their speeds at that age. And Cruz is just an old soul, so he just grasped it. And the funniest thing, I don't know if I told you this or not, I'm down at their football game, and right after Cruz scored a touchdown, everyone was celebrating. And he came over and fist bumped me. I'm standing along the fence, and their coach says, "Hey, you're Cruz's guy." I was like, "Yeah, I'm Cruz's guy." I was like, Cruz has a team of guys. He's 8 years old, Like yeah, it was crazy. Cruz would go out there once he met Will and Tyreek Thunderberg, who's with the Buccaneers, and that crowd. There was a guy, I can't recall his name, but he trains a lot of high level defensive backs there in Charlotte, and he'd go out there on the field with those guys and run around. And his dad was like, the first time he went out, they were like, look at this dude, because he was just, you're never too young.
That's right.
I don't think. I mean, maybe if you're like 3 or 4, but by the time you're playing sports, it's okay to teach them that. I mean, body control.
I also am completely lost on this whole, like, don't, like, you should like, for example, how often do you say, like, if you can keep getting results with a straight bar, you should never use bands and chains? Like, you're going to ruin that stimulus too early on a kid. Like, I'm just not bought in on that statement. Like, not in the first. Like, I'm saying that there is absolutely no need that you have to use that, or like if you're utilizing it in a way that maybe seems like it's not building off of a foundation. But like the same way with like using a shred mill and resisted running, if I throw Performex bands on a squat, it teaches my kids to accelerate towards the top. They're not just going to coast towards the top. I know that was a big feature with E-Node, having that feature where it tell you where the acceleration stops. That's a whole nother stat of like so I'm like, well, all I'm doing is teaching my kids intent to hold force for longer. That's it. Like, I don't know why that's not a tool you would want your kids to use as soon as they've got technique down.
I think
why not?
I'm definitely with you on that when it comes to those tools. I think that you're absolutely right. It's not the tools that make the exercise advanced, right?
Yeah.
I think where I'm kind of with Rob Assisi a little bit on where we were talking is, I think that, rushing kids to 80 and 85, 90% of heavy, low volume too early could shorten that developmental runway a little bit. If you're chasing a strength adaptation and you've got a 10 or 12, 13-year-old, if you can still get a strength adaptation from an early training age athlete at 60%, why not keep doing it?
So
not forever, but so because I want them to be the most well-rounded high school senior, holistically, as opposed to training those high percentages too young and maybe shortening their runway because you are not developing the holistic athlete, before you start to add on those. And it's just like anything else. Your adaptation system is going to get used to those weights and those loads. And at some point, you're almost going to need that. It's kind of like me with pre-workout. I drink pre-workout and, so much that I go into GNC and I say, hey, I need a stronger pre-workout. And it got to the point where he was like, hey, try this Jekyll and Hyde stuff. And I said, I did. And not get anything. And you know what he said to me? Methamphetamine is the only thing stronger than that.
Yeah.
He said, you need
like
to deload.
900 milligrams.
Yeah. So you need to deload a little bit. And I see it in the same way. Like,
yeah,
let's slow play it to the point where, I'm not going to, I don't want to be on a 1x20 program, all the way through, but early on, if they're still getting strong from that, let's just keep rolling with that for a little bit, because now you're hitting 100 different joint angles in a workout.
Sure.
So from an implement standpoint, I'm with you. I don't think that, we put them on a shred mill, they're too young. But I think there's definitely a ability to desensitize the body to that adaptation if you push it too much too soon.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint,
I feel like I can agree with it in some points, but there's still some that I'm like, if you're just trying to win, it's the same thing with stupid travel ball coaches. If you're trying to win the 9-year-old World Series for the sake of saying that you're a champion, you're not. I'm not trying to be a powerlifting champion at 9 years old and just, I got to see the 1-rep max go up. That's not really what I'm saying. Is but at the same coin of it may desensitize the brain from the stimulus. But what if you flip it to the problem-solving skill acquisition that the brain is now familiar with? So now you can actually maximize it. Because think about the kid who has 4,000 or 5,000 wonderful reps under his belt of movement by the time they're 16. Right? You get a kid that's in a good 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 3 years. Typically our 7th graders try to get 5,000, 5,000 reps if we can. That's pretty extremely low intensity, to the point where I've got a pretty good skill grasp. I can actually see, well, when does that skill break down? And sometimes it is with really low weight. Like as soon as the skill breaks down, that's where adaptation, because to me remember we talked about strength strength is really tough to measure. So that doesn't mean like put weight on the bar until it breaks them. You need to have a sharp eye of did you notice a hip shift in their squat? Did you notice that they shorten their range of motion just a little bit? That's the brain saying, I'm not ready for that. So increasing in ability to handle that load is seeing that quality. That's the progressive overload quality I feel like you should see in those young athletes rather than 145 rather than 125. You know, because I used to be so hung up on like, well, if we did this weight this week, we've got to do more next week for progressive overload. Like, it's not necessarily true. Like you could do the same exact weight and same exact reps for 3 straight weeks with young kids, and they continue to get better. So like, I'm with you on that. Like I see both sides.
I say this, you know, I years ago, maybe, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, longer than that, I was sitting in a room and I heard someone say, I don't know if my guys do great technique, man, but we're strong as crap. And I thought, wow, that, you know, like you're bragging about making teenagers stronger, because there's literally not a lot of skill. And I mean, there's skills in eking out the last aspects of it. But if they didn't work out at all and just ate and slept, and you tested them in August and you tested them again in, you know, until they've run through the end phases of puberty, it's not going to make any difference. You know, they're going to it is literally that's why everybody is so hung up on that. I really think, because that's a skillless thing. Anybody can make anybody strong. It's not completely skillless. I mean, but it's literally the easiest thing that we do. Like,
that's right.
By far the easiest thing that we do, because you don't really have to know what you're doing to make kids strong. You just have them lift and, you know.
I mean, you go to any Gold's Gym, guys that there's plenty of dudes in there that all they did was show up and lift hard, and they got strong as crap.
Yep.
You ask them how that happened physiologically, they have no clue.
Nope.
I just get here and lift.
I know, and I think it all is going to go back to people are going to hear what they want to hear and say, those guys are anti-strength. And, I mean, if you would look at me, will you think I'm anti-strength? I'm getting older now, but you know, clearly I'm a big strength guy.
Yeah.
But I understand that's just a spoke in the wheel of performance.
Right,
just
no
like,
doubt.
you know, got spokes coming out of the wheel, and strength is one of them. It's an important spoke, but they all are.
Yep. So I know you're excited too about the new year rolling around, that you're going to get an opportunity to go down and coach Tony's guys a couple days a week during combine season. I know you're going to be involved. This is going to be a big year, guys. Like, you know, as you guys know, we're huge XPE fans. When you turn on the NFL Combine and want to know where they train, if they're an XPE guy, we're rooting for them like crazy. We're typically at a restaurant right around the corner in Indianapolis, eating wings and screaming for them. But, you know, being able to see some really cool numbers come to fruition this year is going to be really cool. Tony is just an unbelievable mind, him and Matt Gates. So, you know, Mark's going to be down there and be part of that team this year.
I can't wait.
Being able to see, you know, I know Drake Burberry with Hawken is playing, doing a study with the guys on the force plates and running it parallel with shred mill, and we're putting their data in RockDaisy and try to see some really cool stuff, man. A lot of stuff on the horizon, and I know as you're getting settled there in Florida, you know, I'm sure you'll get used to it. You'll get acclimated. Not sure if you'll ever get acclimated to that muggy heat, but I'm
loving life right now. I'll tell you that much. It's been
that's true.
15 days of heaven down here.
Yeah, I feel that.
Well, so it's been.
As me and Mark, you know, we talk every day. We could talk for 4 hours, but
all day. Yep.
You know, Mark will be a multi, you know, guest on this show. There's no doubt about it. If you guys have any questions, y'all know to DM Mark, email Mark, whatever. Especially if you're stuck on a tech question, Mark's the guy to ask. Just letting you guys know, do I go with this or go with that? It's like, well, it all depends on what you need and your needs, and there's nobody better for that.
I appreciate that. Here's what I'll say about that. I think people might think, oh, he's just going to push the Simply Faster. I'm telling you what, I'm under orders to be agnostic and listen to what. Today, I was involved in a coach asking about jump mats, and I made just a general recommendation, and they came back and called me up and said, look, I've only got X amount of dollars. I want to get X amount of products, and I directed them to choose between 2 different products that we don't sell because that's my job. Because that person's going to come back next time, and maybe they do buy a Simply Faster product. But
that's right.
So I'm going to put you in the best. But the thing that drives me crazy, this, is when people go out there and say, "Hey, what's the best?" And then under there's 27 people talking about what they're using right now and saying that's the best. That's fine.
I'm guilty.
But
I'm guilty of it.
I get to use it all. I get to play with it all, and I've learned now the questions I need to ask to find the sweet spot for each coach, and so I'm going to do my best. Because I'm a strength coach. I'm a strength coach, dude. I mean, I am. That's why I'm posting all those videos, because it's like I'm reliving my glory days, because right now I'm in a 2-week period of not coaching. But I'm a strength coach that's just happened to be onto a new phase of their life, but I'm still always going to be loyal to that. So
awesome.
I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.